are so many people out there who want to volunteer and find a way in which they can help.
We've got some brilliant people that have come out of the school system here in Attleboro.
You actually perform as an elected official the way people should.
There are no agendas. Nobody has any projects that they have to complete, but we're just sharing information.
Good evening, and welcome to People It's Good to Know. As many of you may be aware, we're going to be having a special city council election to fill the vacancy created when Kathleen D. Simone was elected mayor of Attleboro. Tonight, we're going to have the first of the three candidates who are going to be running to fill that seat. I'm very happy this evening to have Jonathan Tavares with us to share with you a little bit about his background and his hopes for the future. Jonathan, thank you so much for being here this evening.
Oh, thanks for having me, John. I appreciate it.
And tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. Yeah, so I'm 29 years old, born and raised here in Attleboro. Enjoyed a great childhood, had great experiences here in the city. But my background's in real estate. I've been in real estate the last 10 years, and the last 2 years I've been working at a law firm as a securities attorney. My background's always been in business. I've always been self-employed, and I think we share that in common. So I do have a lot of ideas, I think, from a business perspective that I'd love to bring to the city of Attleboro. But going back a little further, I was born and raised here in the city. I went to Studley, went to Hill Roberts. I went to the private school Dayspring over Newport Ave for several years, and I got my undergrad in business finance while running a business, a landscaping business.
It's pretty good. One of the things that's intrigued me is that you're almost the exact same age I was when I first ran for office, and just like me, you've been essentially a businessman all your adult life. It's interesting to see a new generation of entrepreneurs wanting to get involved in local government. What was it that actually spurred you on to decide that you wanted to run for the city council?
Well, I've always been interested in local politics, especially since I think what ties us together is community. And having been in Attleboro almost my entire life, I always figured that I would get involved in city government to one extent or another, and this presented a great opportunity. But to be honest, since having kids a few years ago, that totally changes your perspective on things. And looking back now on the experience that I had here in Attleboro, I want to be able to give them the same experiences and memories that I had. So that's a big driving force and motivator for me right now.
That's great. Now, you've been involved in political, so working on other campaigns in the past. Is that?
Yeah. So the first one that I ever worked on was actually for a friend of mine's mom. I'm sure you're very familiar with her, Sherry Philos.
Sherry was a good friend of mine, and I was once treasurer for one of her campaigns. She's someone who helped to organize a lot of political activities, 15, 20 years ago. It's funny how a lot of people in our community are connected. We all have a lot of mutual friends. And so Sherry got you to be involved in some campaigns?
Yeah, I vividly remember the first time I ever made a phone call was for her in their dining room, and I was terrified, and I was probably about 12 or 13 years old, but it was an interesting experience after it was all done, looking back and thinking, wow, I had a role in helping someone get elected in a city where you knew people, where you saw things were happening. It's not the same as, reading articles in, national, magazines or, national news outlets of, politicians in Washington, D.C. These are, friends, family, neighbors that live next door to you.
And you make a good point. It's the local politics that really matter, at least in my opinion. This is where you can actually make a significant difference. You could have worked on a congressional campaign as a volunteer, but would you really have made a significant difference? Whereas in the case of helping Sherry, who knows, you may have actually been a significant influence on the campaign.
Yeah, and in turn, it also, impressed upon me the importance of being involved in, to your point, the impact that you can have in a local election, and just the camaraderie, and it was a lot of fun, looking back and thinking on those times.
And I was told that you had also worked on campaigns for my old friend George Ross.
Yes.
And you enjoy that part of working on the sort of a state level campaign?
Yeah, state level was a little bit different, but I think it was similar in a lot of ways because, of course, George had come from the city council in Attleboro, so there were similar connections there. But it was a different experience. Government at the state level is much different than the city government, and I didn't see too much of that after that campaign, but that was also a great experience.
So are there certain issues or things that you've been involved in for years that maybe relate to serving as a city councilor?
Yeah, so one of the things that I'm passionate about is affordable housing. With my background in real estate and having worked with homeowners and real estate investors and all sorts of people who are buying or selling real estate for different reasons, I've come to realize that that there's a lot of opportunities, I think, for creative ways to explore, especially in this day and age, how we can achieve more affordable housing. It's not a unique issue, of course. Attleboro faces it, the state faces it, cities and towns throughout the Commonwealth and throughout the country. But I think Attleboro is in a unique place geographically and strategically. We're between Boston and Providence, and we've always been, one of the more affordable communities in the area. And I think we should be exploring, different ideas of, what we can do, especially in this real estate climate, to help all sorts of generations. My generation that's trying to, get into the housing market to buy or even just to be able to afford rent in some cities and towns, and we have the senior population that's struggling to be able to afford to stay in their homes that they've lived in for decades, or perhaps they've lived in Attleboro their whole lives.
How did you first decide? Because apparently you got involved in real estate. You were probably 19, 20 years old. How did that come about?
Sure, that definitely came about by my parents. My parents have been in real estate for a long time. That was always the dinner table conversation. I loved real estate. My brother, not so much. Yeah, I really I took those conversations to heart and wanted to be involved in real estate and see what people were buying, why they were buying it, especially real estate investors. That was the space my parents were pretty involved in, and so getting my real estate license and representing buyers and sellers was a way for me to get paid and learn how real estate worked.
That's great. Now you also have a law degree.
Yes.
You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I do have a law degree, and I work for a securities firm that does real estate and securities work. So I guess you could say that's where the real estate piece fits in. I've been working for that firm for the last 2 years as a securities attorney.
Yeah. So what are the interesting things would you like to share with the public about yourself? I mean, again, being a relatively young guy, there may be a lot of people of my generation who've never met you before and are curious to know a lot of the little background things about you.
Sure. So I guess one interesting fact would be that I was born to immigrant parents. Attleboro, as you know, and as I've heard you say over the years, is really been a melting pot. And my parents are from the Cape Verde Islands. My dad came here at a very young age, as a teenager at 16, and my mom came here pretty young as well. And they were able to create their own American dream, and they were able to create an environment where my brother and I could learn the value of hard work and the importance of character and all of the things that we would hope to see in our hopefully in our own families and our own children. So I think that that created a great opportunity for us to learn about business in the context of a home where that was based on character.
I'm always curious because I really don't know you very well. I'm always interested to learn about people. You know, I mean, almost everyone you meet, if you really get to know them, everybody has an interesting story. And why don't you tell us a little bit about what would you like to do as a city councilor? What kind of things as a councilor really interest you where you think you can make a difference?
Sure. So I think one of the areas that we talked about a minute ago is exploring more creative solutions for affordable housing, which we didn't get into a few minutes ago, but I'll mention it now. A couple of the things that I think we could look into is, our zoning ordinances are from 1940, and of course we've had several amendments since then. But I think that as a city, we should revisit our zoning ordinances and look at where the growth in Attleboro has been happening the last several years, where we think it should be happening in the years to come, and make sure that our zoning ordinances are in line with the growth that we want to see as a city, and make sure that we can create a city where we have an infrastructure to deal with the growth that's happening throughout the city. And maybe that means that there's more of a focus on certain parts of the city to make them more or less dense. And I'm not sure of exactly what the answers are, but I think that's definitely an option that we should explore.
Well, I think one of the important things is to not be afraid to ask the questions. You may not have the answers, or you may not even have a good idea of exactly what you want to do, but at least you know the area you're interested in and not afraid to ask the questions to get the ball rolling. I mean, one of the biggest things that's always concerned me over the years is our infrastructure, our water and sewer and our roadways. And do you have any thoughts on the condition of our city's infrastructure?
Yeah, I mean, as I go door to door, that's definitely been a main concern of many residents. It's potholes or just roads that haven't been maintained for years now, and obviously with the infrastructure of utilities, with the growth of our city of new homes and new developments, and I think that's definitely something that we should look into and plan for the future. Thinking from a business perspective, one of the things that certainly make businesses successful over time is the ability to foresee things in the future and the ability to strategically plan for those things, but also to be flexible enough to adapt to some of those changes over time. And I think we should bring that same approach to the City Council and think about how we can best plan for growth as far as infrastructure, maintenance of our roads, but also city buildings.
Yeah, city buildings is another long-term issue where, at least in my opinion, has been that we've been negligent on maintenance. We like to kick the can down the road until we have a crisis. So again, not knowing an awful lot about your background, a lot of people who run for office have had involvement in different, say, charities and nonprofits, volunteer things. Have there been things in the city that you've been involved with as a volunteer over the years?
Yeah, so over the years, I've actually been pretty involved with my church. It's Rhode Island School of the Bible, and helping others to have a better understanding of the Bible and understanding the world around us. I've also been involved with the 10-mile cleanup here in Attleboro over the years, and that's certainly been fun, but also has provided some good opportunities to meet other people and to be able to give back to the city.
That's good. So, you've been involved in real estate and you do some legal work related to that. Are there other professional business ventures that you've thought about getting involved with in the future? Or?
Yeah, in the future we'll have to see what that holds. But my very first business was actually landscaping. So at the age of 15, I was thinking to myself, I'd love to start a business, but what am I going to do that people are actually going to hire me?
Right.
So I figured, well, landscaping might be a good idea. So printed up some flyers and started going door to door, and it's a numbers game. Eventually I went to enough doors where people people were kind enough to give me an opportunity, a chance. Picked up a few accounts, and then 3 or 4 years later, we had several hundred residential and commercial accounts, and I really learned a lot through that landscaping company.
Yeah, it's amazing when you have a small business, all the skills you can learn from dealing with people. I mean, think about it. If you have 200 customers, that's 200 individuals that you had to deal with, 200 different personalities and temperaments, and that's why I've always thought that having a business background is beneficial in almost anything else that you do in life. What other things would you like to share with the people out there that you might like people to know about you?
Sure. Well, I was married at 20 years old, and my wife and I have 5 kids. So that's usually a shocker when I go to the door and people look at my literature. I have a picture of our family on the back, and people always ask me, "Are those all your kids?"
That's pretty good. I mean, and again, I think probably raising that larger family has taught you a lot of, we'll call it management skills, right? I mean, it's got to be an experience that not everybody, certainly not everyone at your age, has had the opportunity to experience.
Yeah, before my wife and I were married, we talked about our views on kids, and we both wanted a large family, so it was something that we had talked about before, and we wanted to have them while we were young, while we had the energy to raise them, and have the ability to do a lot of things alongside them. So that's really a joy, and there's really never a dull moment at home. I mean, having 5 kids definitely does teach you a lot of things, and I'm learning every day. And I mean, just from the practical things of how to manage a household to managing different personalities with the different kids. I mean, our oldest is 7 and our youngest are twins at 10 months. So
wow.
They're all at different places in life, and they're all very, very young. But it's fun to see their personalities start to develop, and it really does a lot to teach you patience.
Oh, I can only imagine. But it's also allowed you, like your oldest is 7, so he's in the public school system. So our oldest is actually being homeschooled. So that was actually a part of my education as well. After 6th grade, my parents actually homeschooled me through high school, which was a great experience. My wife was actually homeschooled the whole way through, and we had just decided that we'd like to have a more hands-on approach for the education of our kids. So we are homeschooling our 7-year-old, and our 5-year-old is in kindergarten, and we're trying to get her up to speed, hopefully, to be able to do first grade things next year, and hopefully it's not a big shocker, but we've always started them pretty young with schooling from the time that they were 3 or 4, so it wasn't a total shock by the time they were starting to do a full course load like our oldest. But we love the flexibility that provides. I'm able to work from home a lot, so it allows me to have a lot of time with the family. Oh, it's interesting. Over the years, I've gotten to know a lot of people who have done homeschooling, and it's an interesting concept. And like you said, it does allow for a lot of flexibility for the whole family, and that's a good thing. What other interesting things would you like to share with us?
What other interesting things? Well, outside of work and family, one of the other things we like to do as a family is travel when we can. We love spending the colder months of the year in Florida, so we'll go down there a couple times during the winter, and not necessarily to enjoy any of the parks. People think we do a lot of Disney and all of that, but sometimes just to have some fresh air and let the kids play at the park and enjoy an evening stroll is enough for us.
And that can be a huge educational experience for the kids, just to see different parts of the country. I mean, there are plenty of people in my generation who are townies we spent 99.9% of our life here in Attleboro. I think it's neat that younger kids get the opportunity to see other parts of the country and have the opportunity to travel. What do you see as the big issues for someone running for city council right now? What are the things you think are going to be discussed in the debates, and what are people you talk to door asking you about?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are looking for a new generation of leadership. So one of the things that I focused on pretty heavily is the fact that I've never been involved in city politics, and my age, being a younger person, a lot of people have seemed to be pretty receptive to that, and would love to see someone younger involved in politics. So I've really been taking that to heart, and would love to bring a new perspective, new ideas, and just a new passion to address some of the issues that we've dealt with for years, and some of the challenges that we might face. Some of them we know what those are, and some of them we might not.
Right. Well, I think that's pretty insightful right there, to realize that a lot of the things you deal with once you're elected are things that you hadn't even thought about in the whole process of getting elected, because some of those issues pop up on a moment's notice. I like your point about how people are looking for a newer, younger generation. When I first ran for office, I was almost exactly the same age you are, and that generation at that time didn't seem quite as receptive to younger people necessarily running for office. But I do see that as a growing trend. More and more people even younger than yourself, who are seriously interested in politics. Do you want to talk a little bit about maybe how are some of your friends reacting to the idea of you running for office?
Yeah, I think some of my friends are happy. They're interested to see what I'm doing and asking a lot of questions about it. But I haven't noticed as much of an interest, I guess, from my generation. But as you say, I think there's definitely more younger people today who are interested in politics and are interested in making a difference. For me, I think it's all about community, and it's about being able to provide an Attleboro for the next generation. So while I'm still pretty young, I'm thinking about what's Attleboro going to look like in 10, 20, 30, 40 years, and thinking about how can I make this place better for my kids, and at least have them enjoy the same things and have the same sorts of experiences that I enjoyed.
In your life, you said you've lived here virtually all your life. How have you observed the changes here in Attleboro? How do you see Attleboro as being different than it was, say, when you were a kid?
Yeah, well, I think as far as demographically speaking, I think there are a lot more younger families than there used to be. So I grew up in South Attleboro, and South Attleboro is an older community, and there's still a lot of families, couples, and individuals who are still living in their childhood homes, and they really have deep roots of community here in Attleboro. But I think that's changing, and a lot of people are moving from elsewhere around the state, or completely different parts of the country to Attleboro. Once they compare Attleboro to other commuter rail cities and towns, they figure Attleboro's pretty affordable, and Attleboro has a lot to offer compared to a lot of other towns. So I think one of the things that we've been trying to do is to make as many connections and continue to build community in a day and age where a lot of times you really don't know your neighbors. I was just talking to a friend of mine earlier today who said that he still hasn't met 3 of his neighbors, and he's lived in the same place for 20 years.
Yeah, it is amazing how that has changed over the years. Again, when I was a little kid, we knew everybody in the neighborhood. Today, that's just not the case. So what kind of activities have you been involved with so far as far as the campaign goes?
Yeah, so I've been spending a lot of time meeting voters, pounding the pavement, and I think that's, for me, that's honestly been the best way for me to interact with folks. I love going door to door. I love having conversations with people, and it doesn't hurt that I bring my 7-year-old daughter with me. Most people are pretty receptive and happy to talk to us, and are interested in why I'm running, and also excited about the prospect of having someone younger involved in city government.
Yeah, I mean, I know I saw you at the groundbreaking for the homeless shelter the other day. Have there been a lot of events that you've been trying to attend, or have there been city board meetings and stuff that you've inquired about?
As of recently, no. I've spent a lot of time trying to meet voters. Obviously, this is a condensed timeline for the special election, so I've been mostly focused on that. But with double ACS and all the great resources that we have, we're able to go back and watch city council meetings, and so I've done that pretty consistently over the last couple of years. Not only as a resident who wants to know what's going on and be involved to the extent that I can, but also in preparation for hopefully being a city councilor if I am successful in this run.
And as most of us know, whether you're successful in this run or not, there are plenty of other opportunities in the future. We're going to have another election come November, one way or another. And had you thought at all about waiting until the election in November? Or?
Yeah, quite honestly, that was my original thought. I had decided to run after last year's election in November for city council this year in the 2023 November cycle. But with the prospect of this special election, I figured that was a good opportunity for me to throw my hat in the ring and maybe start a little bit earlier than I had planned to, and I'm glad I did. It's been a great experience. So regardless of the outcome, I will run again in November.
Well, that's good to hear, and it's only just the beginning. Now we've got a couple of minutes left here this evening. Are there any closing remarks? Anything you'd like to share with the public out there about how they could get involved with your campaign if they'd like?
Yeah, so if anyone's interested in learning more about me, please go to my website at votejtavares.com, and that's Tavares. I've got some information there about myself and opportunities that you can reach out to me and connect with us.
Well, that's really great. And I greatly appreciate both you taking the time to run for public office, which I think is a really great thing, but also taking the time to be here tonight to share with the public a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your campaign, and hopefully people will get to see you quite a bit over the next, about eight weeks until
a little less.
It's Tuesday, June 6th will be the special election, and hopefully you'll get the chance to see all three of the candidates who are running and make your choice and come out and vote on June 6th. Jonathan, thank you so much for being with us tonight. I really appreciate it, and I wish you good luck, not just in June, but in your future endeavors.
I appreciate it. Thanks, you, John.
This is People It's Good to Know for this week. Hopefully you can tune in again next week. There are so many people out there who want to volunteer and find a way in which they can help.
We've got some brilliant people that have come out of the school system here in Attleboro.
You actually perform as an elected official the way people should.
There are no agendas. Nobody has any projects that they have to complete, but we're just sharing information.